Episode 3. You are not your thoughts. Welcome back, my dear friend. It's good to have you here again. Let's begin this journey together, slowly, gently, and with awareness. Before we dive into today's topic, let's do something simple. Take a slow, deep breath in and let it go.
Relax your body. Let your shoulders drop. And now, in your mind, quietly count from 1 to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. Now, inside your mind, say the word hello. Say it softly, again and again. Hello, hello, hello. And finally, picture a strawberry in your mind. Its shape, its color, its small seeds. Just see it clearly for a moment. Then let it fade. Beautiful. That's it. That's all you needed to do. Now, what was the point of this exercise? In those few seconds, you used your mind consciously. You asked it to count. You asked it to say a word. You asked it to imagine a picture. And your mind obeyed. This is what we call willful creation of thought, when you decide what to think. But here's the interesting part. Most of the time, that's not what happens. Most of the time, the mind creates thoughts on its own. You're not choosing them. You're simply receiving them. That's the opposite state, the passive reception of thought. You're not consciously thinking. Your mind is producing thoughts automatically. And you're just sitting there, listening to a stream of voices that you didn't invite. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're driving to work. Music is playing. The road is calm. And then, suddenly, you notice your mind has wandered. You're replaying something that happened 4 months ago. A conversation at a family gathering. A comment someone made that still lingers. You didn't choose that thought. You didn't decide, I'd like to revisit that awkward night from months ago. It just appeared. Maybe you passed a cafe where you once met a friend named John. Your cousin's name is also John, and that reminded you of your aunt's house. And before you knew it, your mind had taken you back to that night, that moment, that memory. You didn't choose any of it. The mind just pulled you in. And this happens all the time. It happens to everyone. You see something, it reminds you of something else. That memory sparks another. Then suddenly you're lost in a web of thoughts, wondering how you even got there. An hour passes, you're still sitting in the car, but mentally, you've traveled miles through your past. Sound familiar? It's not just you. It's not a flaw in your personality. It's simply how the human mind operates. Now, don't rush to fix it. That's the instinct we all have. How do I stop this? How do I change it? But not yet. For now, don't jump to solutions. Don't look for control. The first step is just to see clearly. To notice that your mind is constantly receiving things from the outside world and turning them into inner thoughts automatically. You are not the one creating them. You are the one hearing them. That's an incredibly important distinction. Because once you see this clearly, you begin to realize how your emotional state, your mood, your peace, your energy is tied directly to the thoughts that are playing in your mind. If the thought is pleasant, you feel good. If the thought is painful, you suffer. And the more you engage with those thoughts, argue with them, defend them, fight them, the deeper you sink into them. That's the trap of unconscious thinking. That's the autopilot mode.
When scientists began studying the human brain, they expected to see quiet stillness when the mind wasn't focused on a task. They thought, if you're not working, not speaking, not solving a problem, then the brain should be resting, calm and silent. But that's not what they found. Dr. Marcus Raichle, a neurologist at Washington University, discovered something surprising while scanning brains with MRI. He saw that even when a person was doing nothing, their brain was still burning huge amounts of energy, almost as much as when they were active. Why? Because the brain was still busy, but in a different way. It had shifted into what researchers now call the default mood network, a pattern of activity that lights up when the mind drifts, daydreams, or replays stories about the past and future. In that state, thoughts appear on their own, automatically, endlessly. The mind revisits old memories, invents new worries, imagines conversations, replays mistakes, plans, predicts, compares, judges. It's always talking. Some studies suggest that we have between 60,000 and 120,000 thoughts per day. Most of them, about 95%, are repetitive, and around 80% of them carry a negative tone. 80%! It's not your fault. It's not anyone's fault. It's just how the mind evolved, to constantly scan for danger, to predict, to prepare, to protect. That survival mechanism kept us alive. But today, in our quiet rooms, it often just creates noise. And when you realize this, something important becomes clear. Your mood isn't always your choice, because your mood is tied to the quality of your thoughts, and your thoughts are, most of the time, not chosen at all. You wake up one morning and feel hopeful. The next, you feel heavy and drained. Nothing has changed on the outside, but inside, the tone of your thoughts has shifted. One memory can change the weather of your inner world. One small worry can darken your day, because your inner state follows wherever your mind wanders. So when your thoughts are random, your emotions become random. When your thoughts are repetitive and negative, your feelings become repetitive and negative. That's how most of us live, trapped inside the echo chamber of our own thinking. We are prisoners of a voice that never stops speaking. And here's where the real confusion begins. Not only do we hear our thoughts, but we start to believe them. We start to become them. A thought says, "I'm not enough." And we say, "Yes, that's me." A thought says, "I'll never make it." And we agree, "I guess I won't." A thought says, "I'm broken." And we live as if it's true. The problem isn't that we have thoughts. The problem is that we identify with them. We mistake the mind's voice for who we are. And once that happens, we lose the quiet observer, the still awareness that sits behind every thought, watching, listening, untouched. Many spiritual teachers, psychologists, and philosophers agree. The first real step on the journey inward is the moment you see clearly, you are not your thoughts. A thought comes, a thought goes, but you remain. The mind moves like the wind, but you are the sky. You may have heard this idea before. You are not your thoughts. Maybe it sounds familiar, maybe even comforting. But unless you've truly experienced it, It remains just a concept, a beautiful sentence floating in your mind. Real understanding doesn't happen in your head. It happens in your being. That's why we meditate. Not to empty the mind or force silence, but to finally see the mind as it is. To experience the distance between you and your thoughts. It's the difference between reading a book about swimming and actually jumping into the water. No matter how many pages you read, you won't learn what water feels like until you touch it. And when you do, even for a moment, you realize something profound. Thoughts arise and fade, but you remain. That quiet awareness, the one that notices the thoughts, the one that listens, that's who you truly are. So before we rush for a solution, pause here. Let this understanding sink in, because real transformation doesn't come from quick tricks or life hacks. We live in a fast food culture. We want instant peace, instant clarity, instant happiness. We want someone to hand us a 3-step plan. Do this, repeat that, and everything will be fine. But that's not how the inner world works. Lasting peace doesn't come from rushing. It comes from seeing, clearly, deeply, patiently. Awareness itself is the beginning of freedom. Awareness is the solution. Michael Singer once said, "The best technique is clarity of understanding." Because when you understand deeply, when you see the truth clearly, you don't need to fight your thoughts. You don't need to control them. You just don't get lost in them anymore. That understanding becomes your peace. So, in this journey, don't look for fast fixes. Let's walk slowly. Let things sink in. Like a stew that needs time to settle, some truths take time to flavor your soul. For now, we stay with awareness. We observe. We practice seeing. You might ask, but what do I do next? Here's a simple practice. A few times a day, just stop wherever you are and gently notice what your mind is doing. Ask yourself, what am I thinking right now? Where did this thought come from? And where does it go when it leaves? That's all. No judgment, no analysis, no trying to stop anything. Just notice. Watch the flow. See the movement of the mind like clouds drifting across a wide sky. And when you notice a thought that feels heavy, instead of believing it, just recognize, oh, there's a thought. And then let it pass. It's not about forcing silence. It's about remembering who the listener is. Over time, this simple awareness changes everything. It softens the noise. It creates space between you and the voice in your head. And in that space, peace begins. I practiced this for years. Sometimes I even set reminders on my phone, little gentle notes that would say, "Notice what you're thinking." I'd stop for a few seconds, observe, breathe, and move on. You can do it anywhere, while walking, washing dishes, driving, brushing your teeth. It doesn't require silence or special posture. It just requires curiosity. Be gentle with yourself. Be patient. Don't make this a chore or an obligation. Make it a quiet game of awareness, a way of remembering who you are. And remember, you are not here to fix your mind. You are here to meet it, to understand it, to make peace with it. Because behind the endless movement of thought, there is something still, something untouched, something you can always return to. That stillness is you. Until next time, take care of yourself. Be kind to your mind, and I'll meet you in the quiet space between thoughts.